Get our first detail on literally within the next 30 seconds.
For your own safety, we hope everyone is seated because, as Rachel said, these are some real closings coming up starting at the top of this next hour. And for that, we're going to swing outside to what we've always affectionately referred to as home ice advantage. It's 7 o'clock in the east, and here are the first projections of election night 2016. In the state of Georgia, we are calling it too close to call. 16 electoral votes. Both parties were fascinated like a hurricane with a last-minute wobble before coming on shore. Both parties want it very badly. In Virginia, ditto, 13 electoral votes. Too early to call, simply not enough vote, though we're told Clinton is in an early lead. Here is the first projection in the Trump column of Decision 2016. That is the state of Indiana, home, obviously, of his running mate, Mike Pence, the governor there currently, 11 electoral votes. Indiana, we are projecting, goes to Donald Trump, as does Kentucky. 8 electoral votes there. That's 2 in a row for Donald Trump. We also have the first projected state for Hillary Clinton. And look, of all places, it's Bernie Sanders, Vermont. 3 electoral votes, but the first nonetheless. Our electoral temperature, if you will, all evening long, we're going to be tracking up the side of our building. South Carolina just added too early to call, though Donald Trump in an early lead. Too early to call means we simply don't know enough. And down onto the ice we go. The race to 270. It's 3 for Clinton, 19 for Trump. We don't have much red or much blue quite yet, but in a little while it'll look much different. The rink will. And there you have our first call.
Reiterating those 2 very interesting calls right at the top there. Georgia, too close to call. Virginia, too early to call with Hillary Clinton in the lead. South Carolina, also too early to call with Donald Trump in the lead. It's worth just reiterating what the difference is between too close and too early. With too early, unless you're getting an indication from the news desk, from the elections desk, about who is in the lead. Otherwise, too early means absolutely nothing in terms of how this might end up. It means we just don't have enough information. With too close, we do have information, just not enough to actually make a projection.
I want to take a look inside here in our big wall at some of the Senate races, the early important name Senate races where we have projections. Recognize Rand Paul from the Republican primary process. He is returning to the U.S. Senate, Republican representing the state of Kentucky. Tim Scott is going back to the United States Senate, South Carolinian, Republican, and in Vermont, what's projected to be a victory of about 30 or so points for Pat Leahy. He'll be heading back, the veteran Democrat from the state of Vermont. And the United States Senate is going to be a moving target all night long. Chuck Todd is pretty convinced that if we determine control of the Senate, it will be an hour followed by an AM and not a PM. And it'll bear tomorrow's date and not today's. Steve Kornacki over at the board. To our viewers, we've been alerted to the first real numbers out of the state of Florida. As you may know, there's the main portion of the state of Florida. Then there's the returns from the western end, the Florida Panhandle. But these are real numbers. Again, pay attention to that number in the upper right-hand corner. 2% of the vote in. We have a long to go. Our coverage will continue after this break. So just to review for our viewers just joining us, we've had our 7 o'clock closings. Here are in gold on the board the 7:30 closings, and 7:30 has arrived. We have the first return will be Ohio, too close to call. Valuable 18 electoral votes. North Carolina, we were just discussing it, too early to call. Simply not enough raw result in. West Virginia, on the other hand, gets added to the Trump pile, 5 electoral votes. Speaking of electoral votes, let's see where they stack up. The night is young. There's our electoral vote thermometer there. Donald Trump in the lead, 24-3. Of course, 270 needed to go up and over. The races we're watching, just wanted to let you know where they are. State of Georgia, still too close to call. Very early percentage of raw vote in. Commonwealth of Virginia, too early to call. And despite how these numbers might look, our tally has Clinton in the lead, while the state is too early to call. And in South Carolina, too early to call, and our tally has Trump in the lead there. So let's look at the red and blue map, starting to fill in a little bit, though there were very few real results here at 7:30. See not so much a red wall as a kind of Louisiana-shaped squiggle through the middle of the country. And so far, Hillary Clinton, one called state. Rob Portman will be returning to the U.S. Senate to represent the state of Ohio. And wow, has that race been through a lot of changes. He had a huge target on his back. Here's the North Carolina Senate race Rachel was talking about. Too close to call at this hour. Whole lot of people watching that one. And the U.S. Senate composition right now is about like that. But again, that's the real moving target tonight. That's going to be all over the place.
That Senate race in North Carolina has been so fascinating to watch. Deborah Ross is the Democratic challenger here. She was not seen as the Democrats' top recruitment target for that seat.
That resonated. I think the fact that Roy Blunt's been around so long actually worked against him in this race.
Senator, forgive me. I have to interrupt. We have a projection. South Carolina now on the board for Donald Trump. 9 electoral votes there. Let's take a look at the road to 270 in map form as South Carolina takes its place as a red state. This just came in at the end of the senator's last answer there.
Senator, apologize for that. But this tells us the overall electoral numbers at this point. At this point, 4 states called for Donald Trump: Indiana, Kentucky, South Carolina, and West Virginia. 1 state called thus far for Hillary Clinton. We're about to hear from a number of states at 8 o'clock, including Senator McCaskill's home state of Missouri. Senator, let me ask you to finish your thought there about Jason Kander and Roy Blunt.
We have 16 states in the District of Columbia here as we approach this hour. We have a lot of more projections as we approach this hour. And let's do it. 8 o'clock Eastern time. Let's go outside to Rockefeller Plaza. Up the side of the building we go. The state of Florida. We have as too close to call 29 electoral votes. Pennsylvania, too early to call, 20 electoral votes. New Hampshire, too early to call, 4 highly fought over electoral votes. Illinois goes to the Clinton column. Of course, the home originally of Hillary Clinton. Big state, 20 electoral votes, part of the blue wall, as is New Jersey, the most densely populated state in the union with 14 electoral votes. That goes to Clinton, as does the Bay State, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, 11 electoral votes. Adding to the Trump block in the South is Tennessee. We're projecting that when all the votes are counted, he will receive those 11 electoral votes. Maryland, reliably Democratic Maryland, goes to Hillary Clinton, 10 electoral votes there. Alabama, 9 electoral votes going to Trump. Oklahoma out in the Midwest will go to Donald Trump, 7 electoral votes. Back up we go to New England, the state of Connecticut, the nutmeg state, 7 electoral votes going to Hillary Clinton. Mississippi, way down south, going to Donald. We have awarded it to Donald Trump. Rhode Island, we keep whipsawing back up north to New England, and part of our story is in this whipsaw, actually. 4 electoral votes from the great state of Rhode Island. Delaware to Hillary Clinton, home state of Joe Biden, going to Hillary Clinton. The District of Columbia, longer talk we could have about taxation without representation there, going to Hillary Clinton. The state of Missouri, we were just hearing from Senator McCaskill. We have this as too early to call, with Clinton leading the Okay, Trump is leading in Missouri, too early to call, with Trump out front. And in the state of Maine, too early to call, with Clinton in the early lead. Let's go to those other races we are watching so far. 75-66 in the race to 220 in electoral votes. It's early yet. And here is how the map looks. We've just added in some more red, and we've just added in some more blue. But a map maker or a political scientist looking for a trend, looking for regions, looking for who we are as a country, you're starting to see that ink blot test. Here are the races we are still watching. Ohio, too close to call, and this could be a while, given the 16% raw vote in. Georgia, too close to call, another closely watched state in the South. North Carolina, too early to call. Virginia, too early to call at this point, but a lead on Clinton's part. We have a Senate race, Illinois. This one got a lot of attention just lately after their last debate. Tammy Duckworth, a decorated combat veteran, turning away the incumbent in this race.
This is important, not only because of who Tammy Duckworth is. This is important because this is the Democrats ousting an incumbent Republican senator who was running for re-election. This will add to the Democratic total in the Senate in a way that could potentially be determinative in the end. Democrats will need 4 seats if Hillary Clinton wins the presidency. They'll need 5 seats if Donald Trump wins the presidency in order to take control of the Senate chamber. Mark Kirk, as an incumbent, you would think would have an advantage, but he's a Republican senator in a blue state, and he ran a, forgive me, I don't mean it in a mean way, he ran a bad campaign.
15-point advantage there for Trump.
Steve Kornacki at the board, thanks. And we have another projection right there next to Steve in the big board. Marco Rubio and Nicole Wallace, I'm looking at you. Will get to be one of the Republicans from the long process you guys went through who gets to give an acceptance speech tonight.
He could be the only Republican who ran for president who gives a victory speech.
Well,
tonight.
we got Rand Paul.
Well, okay, so we may have a couple, but here I want to bring Mark Kirk back into this because the other laboratory of sort of political strategies that we'll be able to chew on in the coming days is what was the best way to deal with Trump. Mark Kirk distanced himself from Trump immediately, and he was personally affected.
We are back here at beautifully decorated Rockefeller Plaza. Still early in the evening, 8:19 Eastern time, but we have enough calls, especially in some of these Senate races. We thought you would walk us through what we know, starting with this projection, the incumbent returning, well-known longtime Republican Senator Richard Shelby of Alabama is going back to the U.S. Senate. In Connecticut, longtime well-known Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal. This is going to end up being like a 30-point margin. He's going back. Chris Van Hollen in Maryland. This is the Mikulski seat. A lot of politicos are saying basically you can hang on to this for a long, long time. She was the senior most serving woman in the U.S. Senate when she retired. And Langford, the projected winner, the incumbent in the state of Oklahoma, the ruby red state of Oklahoma. Democrats up 1 because of that Tammy Duckworth pickup in Illinois. And we were just talking about North Carolina, which brings us to Steve at the board.
Well, let's take a look at the vote. It's coming in now, so you...
Over to the big board, we had a call while Steve was speaking. This is a hold for the GOP, Todd Young, Indiana Senate.
This is a Senate seat that it's very interesting on this. This is the Republican incumbent left this seat, decided to retire. That was Dan Coates. The Republicans nominated Todd Young after a little bit of a primary fight there. The Democrats did not nominate Evan Bayh. In the Democratic primary process, they picked a guy named Barron Hill. After the primary was over, he stepped aside so Evan Bayh could come back in because they thought that he would be a shoo-in, basically, as a household name, as the person who formerly held this seat. But Evan Bayh losing to Todd Young today.
We are back, starting with one of the battlegrounds. Virginia has moved in our projection from too early to call to too close to call, from simply not enough raw vote in to the raw vote we have in makes it too close to call. So we will continue to watch this. There's all kinds of internal politics and vote counting in Virginia going in to making a projection there. Here's the 8:30 poll closing, and that would be the state of Arkansas. The state of Arkansas, home to Bill Clinton and for a time Hillary Clinton, goes tonight to Donald Trump, part of the Red Wall. The Republicans are amassing 6 electoral votes. Here's the race to 270 early in the evening. Hillary Clinton 75-72. And let's take a look at the too close to call state of Florida. 29 electoral votes. You see the margin separating. 91% of the vote in. Sooner or later here, we're going to see why when the Democrats are talking to us about how confident they are, if they're right or wrong, in plain English. Ohio, too close to call, 31% of the vote in. Georgia, one of the early closing states, too close to call, 16 electoral votes. Let's see here. Pennsylvania, too early to call. North Carolina, we have at too early to call. Missouri, too early to call, advantage Trump. Trump is in the lead. New Hampshire, too early to call, those 4 valuable electoral votes. Maine, too early to call, advantage Clinton thus far. Down onto home ice we go. Let's take a look at how the country looks in red and blue. The expanding red out from the middle Atlantic states. Patches of blue, but they're valuable patches. Both will be added upon. Back inside here to a big projection, a kind of big picture projection about our form of government, and that is that the GOP will remain in control of the House of Representatives. That means that when the House begins its next session, Paul Ryan of Wisconsin certainly hopes to be their leader, and further, he hopes to be the Speaker of the House.
And that raises a bunch of immediate questions, and it answers some questions. Obviously, tonight,
sure answers a bunch.
The Democrats.
We are back. Lots of talk at this hour. 8:53 Eastern, 7 minutes away. Pennsylvania, 20 electoral votes, too close to call. 2% of the raw vote in. 10% of the raw vote in New Hampshire. Too close to call.
Both of those were too early to call. They've now both been shifted to too close.
And let's come inside and look at the Senate races in both of those states. This is McGinty-Toomey in Pennsylvania. And we do have the Burr race. Okay. New Hampshire Senate. Kelly Ayotte, the incumbent. Let's see here. 10% of the race in. Too close to call. Difference separated by 7,000 votes.
We've got too close to call there, both in the Pennsylvania Senate race between Pat Toomey and Katie McGinty, and too close to call in the New Hampshire Senate race there between the incumbent Republican Kelly Ayotte and Maggie Hassan.
9 o'clock Eastern time. Here are the polls closing, all in gold. There's the list to the right. Let's go outside and begin this thing. Here are the states we are watching at 9 Eastern. It's a long list. Get ready. Michigan, too close to call. Arizona, too early to call. 11 electoral votes. Wisconsin, too early to call. Colorado, too early to call. Texas has been awarded to Donald Trump. Texas stays red, as does Kansas. No wobble there. Sportsman Paradise, Louisiana, 8 electoral votes, projected to Donald Trump. Nebraska, projected to Donald Trump. The state of New York, reliably blue, and its 29 electoral votes stays with Hillary Clinton. North Dakota, Trump. To go with it, South Dakota, Trump. In the Rockies, Wyoming, 3 electoral votes, Trump. Minnesota, too close to call at this hour. New Mexico, and this was fascinating to see the action out there. Too early, Clinton leading. Let's look at our bar graph and look at the only numbers that really matter tonight, and that is the race to 270. And right now, Donald Trump is leading that 137 to 104.
Donald Trump more than halfway there to 270 if he is going to hit 270.
So here's what we're looking at in terms of battlegrounds. Florida, too close. Ohio, too close to call. Georgia, one of the early closes, too close to call. North Carolina, a genuine battleground. I'm sorry, Georgia, too close to call. New Hampshire, too close to call. Virginia, too close to call. Missouri, too early to call. And Maine, too early to call. Clinton ahead.
Interesting. We've only got about 4% of the vote in Missouri and in Maine. That gives you a hint as to why those are too early to call. But the call is not early. It's close in Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, Florida, North Carolina, Virginia, Ohio, Georgia. A lot of uncertainty right now. And Trump really locking up the traditional red states. The Democratic pipe dream that Texas will someday go purple, if not blue. That pipe dream stays in the pipe for another cycle.
There is the red wall.
Look at the contiguity, the contiguousness of the Republican support in the Electoral College, all except for that one South Carolina, all connected.
That is the red wall of the GOP from north to south and almost from east to west. We're waiting for the Western time zones, obviously. Yeah. Back inside here in the studio, we have a Senate call to make, and we have 2 people here at the desk who know and worked for this guy. John McCain, who had a primary challenge, who will be 86 years old at the end of his new 6-year Senate term, has been reelected to the Senate. Steve Schmidt, Nicole Wallace. Steve, you first.
Well, I think thrilled about it. Great news. I remember when you talk about John McCain being...
And they are being heard tonight. 10 o'clock hour is 5 seconds away. Here we go.
States here. This is
in
gonna be
gold. There they are. Here are the closings. This hour, it is 10 p.m. in the state of Iowa. Our call for right now is too close to call. In the state of Nevada, our call for this hour is too close to call. In the state of Utah, and remember, favorite son in the race, 3-way, too early to call. Clinton, Trump, McMullen. In the state of Montana, the Big Sky State goes to Donald Trump. So that red band, that red wall continues its trek west with the time zones. Here's the electoral race, 140, 104. Here is the electoral, here are the too close to call states. Florida of the battlegrounds, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Georgia, Michigan, all of these too close to call. North Carolina, 81% in. Virginia, we've talked a lot about Virginia this last hour.
Look how close.
Minnesota, 12% of the raw vote in. New Hampshire and Maine, too early to call. Here we go, Arizona, 11 electoral votes. Missouri, Trump in the lead, too early to call. Wisconsin, Colorado, and New Mexico. Let's pan down to the ice and bring up the map. Blue and red on Democracy Plaza. Here's your country so far. The states we've been able to call as the time zones head from east to west. you can see the big states we are waiting for.
Utah is such an interesting case study. Not even a case study. Utah is its own case, its own standalone politics and dynamics this year. If Evan McMullin is able to win the state of Utah tonight, and again, our call right now is that Utah is too early to call, and it is a three-way race between Trump, Clinton, and McMullin. If he wins Utah, that would be the first time a third-party candidate or an independent candidate gets electoral votes since George Wallace, right? 1968? I mean, if he can actually win that state, there's obviously Evan McMullin is not going to win the presidency, but if he
Hang on, I got a projection. NBC News is projecting that when all the votes are counted, Donald Trump will be the winner in Missouri. 10 electoral votes. Another piece in the Midwest and another patch of red. The race to 270 looks like this: 150, 109. Let's look at Missouri on the map.
Thank you.
Steve Kornacki, can I ask you one impressionistic question in terms of what you've been watching tonight? No, I can't.
Oh,
you there,
I'm here.
Steve?
Yes, sorry.
Hi.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
We are back. We have a major call coming out of the vote. We'll try to get it up there, and it is Ohio. Donald Trump, the projected winner in the state of Ohio. 18 electoral votes. A hugely important piece of real estate where that comparison is concerned. 168, 109 in the race to 270. Here's where it looks like, this is where it looks like as a color, filling in the red alongside Indiana to the west of Pennsylvania, down on through West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, and so on.
Ohio and Iowa had been the two traditional swing states that the Clinton campaign felt like were, or the Trump campaign felt like were most within their grasp. Iowa and Ohio consistently have been polling in ways that have been favorable to Donald Trump. Obviously, Ohio is the archetypal battleground, but I think everybody's been feeling like it was leaning toward him. Still, that's got to shake the Clinton confidence even more than these other close races do right now. I do want to point out one thing about North Carolina, which we are watching so intently right now. Again, North Carolina is one of these states that is too close to call, and it has been so for a very long time. Even right now, with 83% of the vote in, it is still too close to call Trump in the lead. But we were talking a little bit earlier on about the other two big ticket races in North Carolina. One of them, this Senate race, Richard Burr, incumbent Republican senator, trying to hold on to his seat against Deborah Ross, who ran a good campaign against him. Burr is now the projected winner of that seat. He will hold on to that seat. The other big ticket item in North Carolina is the governor's race, and it's been fascinating to watch these governor's numbers come in out of this governor's race in North Carolina. Right now, again, with 84% of the vote up, it is too early to call. Too early to call in North Carolina, but you see these guys deadlocked 49-49. So if you're looking for sort of advice as to how North Carolina is going to go in the presidential, that Senate race may make you think that Donald Trump is going to pull it out. This governor's race gives us no information because this is as close as they come.
Yeah, historically, you have to win Ohio if you're a Republican. It's a necessary condition, but not a sufficient condition. Winning Ohio does put him at the edge now, possibly winning the election. However, I do think we're going to see a pattern which is traditional.
All right. Speaking of Colorado, let's do some of these Senate races, because the first one on our list, we've been trying to fall back and catch up with these Senate races this evening, is Michael Bennet returning from Colorado. There will be
Democratic incumbent there.
Inevitable talk about Michael Bennet joining leadership, I think, in the years to come. A very popular figure. And more about Colorado as a state after this. The leader of the Democrats predicted, people guess it's going to be led by Chuck Schumer of New York, who had an easy time returning to the Senate. We're just going to go through these. Jerry Moran in Kansas. John Hoeven, North Dakota. Getting these as you're seeing them. John Thune going back to the Senate from South Dakota. He had an interesting history with Donald Trump during this campaign. John Boozman, Arkansas. Georgia, it's going to be Johnny Isaacson. In Iowa, the longtime KG Republican veteran Chuck Grassley going back. And Mike Lee, the popular Republican, is going back from Utah. Here's the Senate again. Democrats with one net gain, but this is early.
Yeah, but the Senate races that are outstanding right now are a bunch of fascinating ones. In Missouri, I believe our characterization in Missouri with Roy Blunt trying to return to the Senate, the Republican, against a Democratic challenger named Jason Kander, I believe our characterization there is that is still too early to call.
I thought that was too early, yeah.
In Missouri, we do have a presidential call that Missouri has gone to Donald Trump at the presidential level, but this Senate race right now is still too early to call. Also, in terms of too close to call Senate races, big names. Pat Toomey in Pennsylvania against Katie McGinty, the Democrat. That's too close to call. In New Hampshire, the Kelly Ayotte race against the Democratic governor, Maggie Hassan. That is too close to call. And in Nevada, we've got Joe Heck, the Republican, up against Catherine Cortez Masto, who's the Democrat trying to take Harry Reid's seat there.
We have
also too close.
Excuse me. We have a major projection. In the state of Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia, the projected winner is Hillary Clinton. Casey Hunt?
Campaign breathing a sigh of relief there.
Sure, sigh of relief. And, you know, we were talking earlier, and I had a source talking to me about, and forgive me for using a House race as an example here, but Barbara Comstock, she's...
We have another projection, just as we were going to sneak away to a break. We have another projection, and that is that in the state of Colorado, when all the votes are counted, Hillary Clinton will pick up 9 electoral votes there. As we look at the race to 270, here's the bar chart, 168 to 131. Let's see what this looks like in blue and red. It certainly starts a vertical for the Democrats out west. They have a known vertical in California along the Pacific Ocean, but Chris Matthews, listening to those, our colleagues in the other studio, interesting.
Look, there's no other word for it. This is a surprise. And
especially on nights like this, we have all vowed to rename Michigan temporarily just by saying it 3 times. Michigan, 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 given its importance tonight. Here are our 11 p.m. poll closings. There they are in gold. We've gone all the way out west, and here we go up the side of the building. In the Golden State, in California, the projected winner is Hillary Clinton. Note the electoral votes, 55. In the state of Washington, Hillary Clinton, the projected winner. In the state of Oregon in the Pacific Northwest, Hillary Clinton, the projected winner. In the state of Hawaii, 4 electoral votes, Hillary Clinton, the projected winner. In Idaho, interesting race, as we've been saying, Donald Trump, the predicted winner, 4 electoral votes. Here is the bar graph to 270. Here is the math. Right now, Hillary Clinton 209 to Donald Trump's 172. More on that as we continue. Here are the states we continue to watch. Too close to call, and these are some big ticket items. Florida, Pennsylvania, Georgia, one of the first states to close tonight. Here we still are. Michigan, Michigan, Michigan. North Carolina, 15 electoral votes. Minnesota with 10. Iowa, still too close to call. Nevada, still too close to call. Ditto New Hampshire. And the state of Maine, which we have moved from too early to too close, with not even half the raw vote in. Now, the list of states we are characterizing too early to call: Arizona, Wisconsin, and Utah. Let's take a look at the Reds and the Blues down on home ice. In this road to 270, unmistakable color patterns, but a West Coast bulwark with this 11 p.m. Eastern time poll closing. for Hillary Clinton.
It's interesting. At this poll closing, this is the first one where we've had all of the races called. We had no too close, no too early in the races that just closed right now at 11 o'clock. Also, no surprises. Had any of these been a surprise, it would have been seismic. But yes, Idaho is going to be red. The whole West Coast is going to be blue, including the island state of Hawaii. We only have one state left to close now, which is Alaska. That's the only state outstanding in terms of its poll closing. We're just waiting on states that are too early and too close to call.
Let's go to a Senate call on the wall here in the studio, and that's Ron Johnson
a big one.
going back for the Republicans. The Democrats were quite confident that Mr. Feingold would be going back to the U.S. Senate. And, Chris, what's the quote you've been using all night? But you can't go home again.
You can't go home again. I think Feingold would have been a big surprise. I think historically he would have been the first person to defeat the person who beat him when he had the office.
He would have
Senate.
been. That's right.
But I have to tell you, as
that's very.
We have a projection. Donald Trump is being awarded North Carolina.
Whoa. Well, that's a pitch.
Just came in 15 electoral votes. This makes all kinds of different paths even more interesting. There's the electoral race, 209-187. Here it is in color.
We're going to have to start talking about the deer tracks again, the paths to 270 at this point.
It's still contiguous.
Yeah.
It's all red together there.
Well,
that's
yeah, if you're going to hike it, that's useful. But in terms of who's going to be president, I want to know the numbers.
Together.
Hey, Lawrence O'Donnell, I want to hear from James Carville.
We've got James Carville.
Call the state of Florida. What we are terming the apparent winner, Donald Trump. In the state of Florida, 29 electoral votes. The apparent winner terminology. Here is the electoral math. 216 Trump, 209 Clinton. The race for 270, here's how it plays out visually. So much talk about the paths to 270. Who merely wanted Florida?
Right now,
who needed it? We have another call back-to-back. Utah, Trump, 6 electoral votes. The projected winner in Utah. Here we go. 222, 209. Back down to the ice we go for the depiction in color. Red and blue.
Well, still connects.
And the remaining gray.
In terms of the swing states tonight and how they have gone, we've got Hillary Clinton, just in terms of swing states and battlegrounds tonight, prevailing in Virginia, in Colorado, in New Mexico. We've got Donald Trump prevailing, according to NBC News projections, Donald Trump prevailing in North Carolina, Ohio, and Florida.
I need to interrupt with another one. Trump wins Iowa, the projected winner in Iowa. We've had a flurry of projections here. 6 more electoral votes for Donald Trump this evening. 228, 209.
Again, the number that you're going for here is 270. That's the number of electoral votes that you need in order to win the presidency.
It's too early for me to think about anything like that.
We got a call to make. Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me.
In the state of Georgia, one of the earliest to close, one of the latest to be called. Donald Trump, the projected victor there, 16 electoral votes. A lot of talk that the Democrats would be able to convert that. As you see our chart, 244, 209 in the electoral votes. And down on the board, it is a continued march of Republican red, sweeping the American South. Chris?
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, you still on? Okay, we lost him. Well, there you go. That map of red is continuous. It's contiguous.
Let's go out to Nevada, where Harry Reid is vacating his Senate seat, and where the Democrats had the chance to have the first Latina woman in the U.S. Senate, and they appear to have done so. It was tight all the way. Joe Heck, his fortunes kind of rose and fell, and tonight they fell just enough for the Democrats to hold a net hold of this seat. We're going to take a break. We'll have more of our live coverage when we come back. We are back, and we wanted to just take stock of the states that have yet to be called. Pennsylvania and its 20 electoral votes still too close to call. Michigan is also on that list, as is Arizona, still too close to call. Upper Midwest includes Wisconsin. We just had a projection. This is a call interrupting our list. Hillary Clinton is the projected winner in Nevada with its 6 electoral votes. Here is where that leaves us: 244, 215. Trump over Clinton. And here's what the map looks like with the pickup of Nevada for the Clinton campaign. You see the coastal argument people have been making. It's pretty hard to deny that we are a coastal blue country. Steve Kornacki has been looking at the state of Pennsylvania. Has been looking. We're now arrived at the 1 a.m. mark here on the East Coast, and that means the polls have closed in the state of Alaska. We have this to say about Alaska, and that is that it is too early to call between Clinton and Trump. Let us, however, look again at the electoral vote totals. Here, our bar graph on the side of the building now stands, as we've been chronicling all night, 244 Trump, 215 Clinton. In the balance is the red and blue. And this national map that we've been staring at all evening, going back and forth, starting in the east and going to the west with the time zones. Still outstanding, the states in gray, which we will now display. The states that are too close to call. Pennsylvania, too close to call, separated by 46,000 and change. Michigan, the difference of about 60,000 votes, too close to call. Arizona, out in the desert southwest, around 60,000 vote difference. Wisconsin, the Dairy Belt, 84,225 with 87% in. Minnesota with just about 80% of the vote in. And finally, New Hampshire, too close to call, 82%. Look at the difference.
You think your vote doesn't matter?
You think your vote doesn't matter?
96 votes between the two of them.
Yeah, I said finally. I almost forgot the great state of Maine, which has been a pitched battle all night with 81% of the vote in. 17,000 votes separate 4 split electoral votes from Maine. And that's where we have it, 1 a.m. Eastern time.
Yeah.
We have a call on the Missouri Senate race. It's really attracted so much attention. The Democrats thought they could eke out a pickup. This race, as I was saying earlier, on pure technical grounds, probably gave us the craftiest ad of this campaign. The gentleman on the right, Jason Kander, the Democrat who has gone down in defeat, showed that he could assemble an AR-15 blindfolded, as countless members of the U.S. Armed Forces and law enforcement can do. But it was about guns as an issue in this race, and one ad does not a Senate race or a wave election make. And so it's a net hold for the Republicans. But Mr. Blunt, the veteran Republican from Missouri, always an interesting political state, is going back to the Senate. Steve Kornacki, having forged an alliance with his technology, is back at the board. Steve, let's record keep on this Senate race in Pennsylvania. We've talked about Pennsylvania so much, and the incumbent is going back. Pat Toomey. Chris Matthews is shaking his head
because of all the predictions I got from the experts up there. Toomey, but I did get a good call from, and James knows Pennsylvania very well. He's won many races up there. People like Rendell, the governor would say, who works with us now, said that Hillary would have to win by 4.
Maine, we have a projection. Maine, it is being projected by NBC News, will be won by Hillary Clinton when all the votes are cast. 3 out of the 4 electoral votes.
So that means we are not projecting the separate congressional district that...
No.
Okay.
Donald Trump gets 1.
Okay.
So you'll note his total has grown by 1. What a fascinating and confusing and terrific.
So to be clear,
yes.
Of the to be clear,
yeah.
Maine, one of the electoral votes in Maine goes to Trump. The remaining electoral votes in Maine go to Hillary Clinton.
We're working on a new graphic that says she gets most of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly. We haven't explained our decision desk, but this is important. We'll get to that after we show you this decision. Lisa Murkowski, the incumbent. That's a net hold in Alaska. And here's what that means. The larger graphic, the Senate at this hour, Democrats +1, Republican control of the Senate. This is what we've been talking about all night. If Trump goes on to victory and the White House, if this holds as we believe it will, as our early evening projection of the House, Republican control holds as we think it will, all 3 branches. And so, as Chris Matthews and others have been talking about tonight, those people who were motivated to cast their vote for the Supreme Court, among other issues. And here's another projection. Alaska, we are projecting when all the votes are counted, will go to Donald Trump. 3 electoral votes. You think 3 electoral votes, small peanuts, don't matter? Look at what they do to your total when they push you up to 248 versus 218. A word about our national map. Here's the reds and the blues. And notice that landmass out in the Pacific with the Aleutian Islands trailing. Alaska has gone to Donald Trump. Hawaii has gone to Hillary Clinton, 218, 248. Can we take the shot of the decision desk? This is important. I know we've had an erosion in trust in our institutions, and I'm just asking you to believe me. Our decision desk in this building is, they take place in their own world. They
forward to being your president. And hopefully at the end of 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, or maybe even 8 years, you will say, so many of you worked so hard for us, but you will say that that was something that you really were very proud to do, and I can thank you very much.
You are watching MSNBC. Just minutes ago, NBC called the state of Minnesota, Hillary Clinton taking it with 10 electoral college votes. It does not change the outcome. The apparent winner, according to NBC, Hillary Clinton in the state of Minnesota. I am, of course, not just looking at the map, I'm looking at the clock because we are 1 minute away from the stock market opening right here in New York City. I'm joined by my colleague.
We'll have a unified Republican government. NBC News projects that the control of the House of Representatives remain in Republican hands, where the House balance of power stands right now. Let's put it up there on the screen. 238 Republican, 193 Democrat. There are still, obviously, looks like 5 uncounted seats. Good old California. We'll get them. It always takes a few more days to get all of California's vote in. And the Republicans will retain control of the U.S. Senate. Republicans currently hold 51 seats. It could grow by 1. Louisiana The race for that Republican-held seat is going to go to a runoff, as it always does, top two in that jungle primary. It is Republican, sometimes he's been other parties, but it's Republican John Kennedy and Democrat Foster Campbell, who will face each other this December. By the way, this actually could be oddly a race because the Republican Party's never been crazy about Kennedy. This could be kind of a mess down there, and only the way Louisiana does races down there. God love them.
Also, where competitive Senate races, Democrats did win. So coattails matter. Democrat Tammy Duckworth defeated Republican Senator Mark Kirk in Illinois. Hillary Clinton won out there. Catherine Cortez Masto held Harry Reid's seat in Nevada. Hillary won there. And although the presidential contest in New Hampshire has yet to be called by NBC, NBC News projects now that Democrat Maggie Hassan is the apparent winner over Senator Kelly Ayotte. But in the states that Clinton lost.
And NBC News is now calling Doug Jones the apparent winner in this special Senate election in Alabama. That's NBC's call at this hour, 13 minutes before 11. The apparent winner in Alabama. And Rachel, we can expect the congratulatory presidential tweet any moment.
Yes, I'm sure. And the peace be with you. And we are all Americans first. And we look forward to reaching across party lines. It's going to be nice when I wake up. Yeah, we shall see. I mean, how the president reacts to this. Obviously, this is a loss for the president.